Mr. Clauser?
Here.
Mrs. Cooper? Here. Dr. Faulkner?
Here.
Dr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Huron?
Here.
Mr. Reichard?
Here.
Mr. Vognitz?
Here.
Mr. Brookhart?
Here. 1.3, the minutes, September 11th, 2023 board meeting. The board will take action to approve the meeting minutes from the September 11th, 2023 board meeting as presented. Can we get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Questions or comments?
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper? Yes. Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. Reports. Finance and budget, Mr. Vognitz.
We had a meeting October 4th. A couple of things that we went over was our capital reserve and general funds, audit update, annual financial report, the Act 1 index, information on that, and information on special education ban, the sound system bid results, used equipment bid results, and additional counts in the land adjacent to the primary school.
Academic affairs, Heater is not here. Is anyone else
Can you
like to?
get closer to the mics? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Academic affairs?
Yeah, so
Dr.
the
Green?
one thing I would like to say is that there is no meeting this Wednesday because there isn't a quorum of the board members due to other obligations. And so the agenda for the academic affairs coming up will be rolled over into next month's academic affairs. But we seem to be progressing fairly well with curriculum. And at least as part of the academic affairs committee, I'm proud of the changes that are being made.
Okay. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Reichert.
Buildings and grounds, we had a meeting. We're working with NRG Services in order to install some switches for the HVAC systems that would allow all systems to communicate with each other instead of the way they operate now. We discussed the need for a new district van with a wheelchair access, and they had placed an order, I think, and it came through because I think it's on our agenda tonight. So they'll have a new van possibly. And we also discussed at the end of the year, Liberty Valley projects with work left to be done, replace some materials. That's we're not properly adheres to walls, and some spots still working with the contractor to finalize to see what we're going to do.
Thank you. Any questions? Buildings and grounds. Energy controls, are we going to get more information then on that as it evolves as a project of some type? I know syncing your controls across district. So is that what we're trying to do with NRG controls?
Yeah, we're trying to sync. There's a couple of different softwares that are running things, and some of them we can't control locally right now with
Right.
the switches that are in place. So as we move forward, yeah, that would be brought forward as an explanation. Costs and, you know, where we're putting them and so
Any
on.
projections on what we're looking at? I don't know how extensive this is going to get.
At this time, I do not have.
Okay. So that's what
A
they'll bring
sound
to us at some
explanation.
point.
Yep.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Athletics and extracurriculars.
We had our meeting on the 6th. We discussed the fall participation numbers. Very healthy. We discussed middle school lacrosse. We're looking into possibly making that a sport. We're going to be putting out papers to get interest from the kids, from girls and boys. We talked about the Athletics Hall of Fame, boys and girls wrestling coach recommendations. Talked about a little bit about volleyball and how well their girls are doing. Next meeting's on the 2nd, November 2nd.
All right, thank you. Anything, questions, comments?
No, can I just mention the cross-country team won the Lewisburg Invitational, which is kind of a big deal.
Congratulations, great job.
The girls took first, if I remember, and the boys took second, and they won overall, which is pretty impressive.
Ms. Cooper, the one question I have, with middle school lacrosse, I'm all for expanding lacrosse. I think it's great. Who else has it around here? Do we know that? Is that something we need to find out?
You can ask Mr. Moses.
That's one of the
Yeah.
things, yeah, we're diving more deeply into that. We are aware that there are some schools potentially in the Mid-Penn who have some at least club level
Okay.
teams. We don't know who has school sanctioned PIAA teams, so that's something we certainly have to find out prior to going forward.
Mid-Penn toward Harrisburg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So what we probably would be looking at as of right now, given the number of teams around here who would not have it, would probably be more along the lines of a couple of tournaments
Okay.
each season as opposed to
Yeah.
a regular schedule.
No, I appreciate that. One of the reasons when we went down the path of girls volleyball and not girls and boys is that nobody has boys volleyball around here. There's nobody to play unless you're willing to travel a lot. So I appreciate that. That's a part of the discussion as well. Thank you. Health and wellness?
There's no new updates. We're meeting quarterly. It'll be rolled in with the academic affairs immediately after it when we do meet. But there is a lot going on, sort of behind the scenes, thinking about policy revisions and things like that for suicide prevention. And I have to give Dr. Faulkner a bunch of credit for driving some of that forward in an evidence-based manner.
In the superintendent report, we will be having an update on items from the task force that are already kind of living and breathing in the district that we're excited about.
Thank you. VOTEC, Mr. Clauser.
Very little administratively to report. The construction is ongoing. I will say, though, after the meeting last month, we had a tour through the school itself, and wow, what a difference. You walk in there, it's very modern compared to what used to be like walking into a dungeon. And now you walk into something it looks very modern, very up to date. I believe they said that the kids have actually made comments that it's actually like going to school now. Yeah. So, yeah, very happy with what that's done. And that's it. Nothing else to report.
Mr.
And the new executive director will be starting in about a week. So a week from Friday, the local superintendents have our first meeting with him, and we'll get to know him.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. We had here CSIU, Dr.
Yeah.
Faulkner.
Yep, we met this past month. One of the updates was that there was funding renewed for ELECT. It's a education leading to employment and career training program. That was funding was renewed in collaboration with some of the local state senators, and it's a really incredible program when you have kids who have children at a young age, and it's great to see that thing is continuing. They have all sorts of supports and programs. The IU is continuing to offer youth mental health first aid and suicide prevention trainings. I think they were doing one today. They've got some more coming in December, and as the year progresses, more folks can get that training. It's really a neat program because it can train people to train other people. So we really disseminate that information, not just to folks in the district, but also in the community, whether it's Boy Scouts or, rec league coach or wherever. Somebody's interested in getting that kind of training to support as a lay person. It's really cool programs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the IU? EITC. Mr. Huron, nothing? Okay. Head Start, Mr. Reichard.
Head Start. It's an awareness. It's an awareness month. The children are decorated cards for everyone here to say thanks for supporting the early learning, for the early learning program. And next month we'll have a meeting in October,
Okay.
25th.
All right, thank you. And the CS Trust, there has not been a meeting. They meet quarterly. I have not seen any additional information. Mr. Sokolowski, are you aware of anything else? Sometimes it comes directly to you.
Monday the 23rd is our next meeting.
Okay.
So that'll be the first time that I'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll review it next meeting.
Provided we approve you. You're the next item.
All right, well, I won't be question in a little while.
In 1 minute, right?
Okay.
I'm sure he'd be.
All right. Any questions on any of the reports?
I have one thing. I know at the athletic committee meeting we brought up about looking into the traveling for the PHAC. if we're talking about middle school lacrosse going to mid-Penn then. So I have concerns about that.
No, it's a long trip, obviously, for any team to go down to the PHAC, and there's an awful lot of discussion we probably could have when we get into travel for athletics. We've started that a little bit. I brought it up last month, and the devil's in the details. There's an awful lot of things we have to work through. Is that something, you were going to talk a little about that tonight, I believe, weren't you?
Yeah, part of the superintendent's report will have an update on that particular strand
Okay.
of the PHAC conversation. But in terms of how a middle school lacrosse would fit in for both girls and boys, Mr. Vognes, I just want to say we would be doing our due diligence and making sure that we've, really kind of do our homework before launching into saying, yes, we're going to have a team. We want to make sure it would be viable and accessible for kids. We certainly would not want to be sending kids an hour and a half away multiple times over the course of a season.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get into that a little bit later if that's okay. Okay. CS Trust Representative 2.2. Board will take action to approve Michael Sokolowski as a Danville Area School District Representative for the CS Trust. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Business manager historically has served. And Laura, whenever you're ready.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Number just three. I'm sorry. Superintendent's report. We're ready for you, Dr. Need.
Thank you. We have a few different items in the report. We're going to start with an enrollment report. So, Mr. Ryan, if you could go to the next screen. With us being early in the school year, you'll see that numbers are not very different than they were a month ago, as this is the time kids are moving in and getting settled. So the number in parentheses represents last month, and you'll see that we're at most 1 or 2 off from where we started the school year in terms of moving in and moving out. If you go to the next slide, you'll also see that we're pretty consistent with where numbers are in non-public so far this school year as well. The next item, I do try to keep the board just aware of kind of changes, legal changes and things like that you may just want to be aware of. So in the state of Pennsylvania, nationally, there are school districts who are suing social media. Has started to have some school districts join these sort of massive federal lawsuits, if you will. And Luzerne and Lackawanna counties now have some school districts that are a part of that. So the thinking behind it is that social media is contributing to a youth mental health crisis, and that school districts are now funding a lot of mental health resources for students and feeling like a lot of that is coming directly. So I'm certainly not suggesting that we have to go in that direction. I'm just wanting to inform the board that this is something that's growing attention nationally and now is growing some attention regionally, kind of at least in neighboring counties. So wanted the board to be aware of that.
Would you mind sending us something?
I'd be happy to do
just
that.
in email, and then obviously it's public and we can come back and talk
Absolutely.
about it if we choose to in a little bit more detail in the future.
Yep, would be happy to do that.
Anybody else, anything on this? Okay, thank you.
The next item, like I shared when Dr. Green presented from our mental health committee, is just that is a link in the slideshow for anyone who wants to find the slides online as well. And our mental health task force report is in the mental health drop down on our website, but just wanted to share some of the things that we're already up to in the school district. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we've divided our mental health task force report into tiers. We spoke about that a little bit in the spring when it was initially presented. So in education, when we're talking about tier 1 interventions, we're talking about things that we do for all students. So happens in regular ed, all students get these services. So when we're talking about mental health services, these are the things that we're making prevalent in our schools for all students. So if you go to the next screen, Mr. Ryan, you'll see some of the things that I just want to highlight in each of our buildings. So in the high school, we've revised our GPS class for 9th graders. So all 9th graders coming into the high school at a semester of a course where they're learning some high school social skills, they're learning some career awareness, they're learning some mental health skills, so specifically designed for students transitioning into high school. One of the other things that our high school has done that they presented on at the last Academic Affairs Committee meeting is that we've revised the flex period of the day. So that last a little over 20-minute block of the day, students are divided now into a group where they'll stay with the same teacher for their 4 years of high school to build a relationship there. And that teacher will support them with some mental health initiatives. There'll be academic advising. There's a club time for students. So it's a time for students to be in really small groups and build a relationship with a teacher in the high school. So excited about the revisions that have happened there, and they were a recommendation from the task force's work. The high school's also been working really hard on designing school-wide positive events for teachers and staff. Last week was a very successful homecoming week at the high school. There was an amazing carnival on Friday afternoon. Mr. Varhalik was in the dunk tank in his shirt and tie and dress shoes, and kids had a great time dunking him in the dunk tank. There was a powder puff game, a great homecoming dance on Saturday night, and there's just been a lot of positive life in the high school. So thankful to our leadership and our staff and our students at the high school. We've also had some revisions to our cell phone and e-hall pass procedures at the high school. So we're asking students to have cell phones away bell to bell at the high school so they can have them in between, but they don't need them during learning times. And students use an e-hall pass when they need to go out into the hallways. And in speaking with our school police officer at the high school, there's just been a drastic drop in concerns in the hallways and concerns connected to just kind of online bullying and those kind of problems. So really excited and thankful for administration and staff for taking that on. All of those things happening at the high school were all things that the mental health task force recommended that we put into place. So really excited that those things are already happening and we're already seeing those positive results. At the middle school, many of those same kind of positive initiatives are happening. The middle school has a RISE class for 6th graders, which is a new course that all 6th graders take 2 out of 6 days in the cycle. That's similar to the class for 9th graders, is a welcome to middle school, even things like here's how you use your locker and switch classes and organize yourself, to social emotional learning and mental wellness activities. And so they will take that, where the high school class is 1 semester, the RISE class is 2 out of 6 days for the year for students in 6th grade. The middle school is also having school-wide positive events. So they're having Forge Fridays, where students have been able to sign up for special clubs that they're interested in, from ping pong to dodgeball to sign language to arts and crafts. And they're put in kind of clubs with other people that are interested in those topics, and really having kind of some special Fridays once a month. They had their first middle school pep rally on Friday in conjunction with homecoming. So middle school athletes were really excited to be recognized. And there was a battle of the classes tug of war. I think on my own daughter, there was like rope burn on the back of the leg. And I was like, what happened at school? So a fun day for everyone. They have also tackled the cell phone and e-hall pass procedures as well. And we're seeing a significant drop in discipline referrals connected to that, and just increased, like, cell phones are away at lunch and students are interacting and going outside and playing. And so those recommendations from the task force are really playing out really well at the middle school. So thank you to Ms. Knoll and Mr. Snover for their leadership there, and all of our teachers that are working hard. At our elementary schools, we're having a guidance class 1 out of every 6 days for our kindergarten through 5th graders. And the cost of materials to bring in programming there was grant covered, so excited for that programming. And our elementary schools have also done a great job of having school-wide positive events. You'll see actually in some of our newsletters today some great pictures from Rock Your School Day that both the primary school and Liberty Valley had. We had some great rock star kids coming to school. The primary will also be holding a trunk or treat that is a very popular community event coming soon. Mr. Ryan, if you move to the next slide, you'll see that then we move to tier 2. So tier 2 interventions are actions that are taken to help students who are identified as needing a little bit more support than just tier 1 would offer. So in the same way we would do that for academics, we want to help students with mental health or behavior issues by having tier 2 initiatives. So the ones that I'm presenting today, the task force report has some additional recommendations, but these are ones we've already put into place immediately. So the report was finalized at the end of last school year, and we worked very hard over the summer to make sure we were ready to put some of them into place already. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that one of the additions we've had at tier 2 is to have Ms. Wenrick and Ms. Willoughby's roles of being principals of intervention and special education. So not only are they supporting our students that have IEPs, but they're thinking specifically about the interventions that we need to put in place before students are even at that level of need. And that is not only academically, but also students with behavior concerns. So excited to have both of them in that role. One of the things they're specifically tackling is also improving our child study process. So how we're recommending students when they need additional support, how we're documenting that additional support that students are receiving. So we have evidence as to whether or not our interventions are working. And we've also made some modifications to our Ironman Cyber Academy at both the middle school and the high school to have some increased connection between teachers and students and families and accountability for students in those programs, and excited about the number of students in our cyber programs physically coming in, building relationships with the other students and the teachers in those rooms. Then we move to tier 3, and in tier 3 then, again, we're just kind of moving up in terms of need. Now we're looking at students with mental health problems that are more extensive, that may need supports within the school, and may also need to be in contact with outside agencies. So some of the tier 3 initiatives that we're already putting into place are that we did, so Mr. Ryan, if you go to the next slide, you'll see we did hire a mental health specialist at the middle school. Really excited to have him, and he's already off to a great start. We're also in tier 3, the task force recommended some additional positions. So this is the first place that you're really seeing kind of a financial connection. So one of the things we wanted to do is explore options for paying for additional mental health positions. We've applied for several grants, and we were just awarded a $50,000 grant from the Dagenstein Foundation to help cover that mental health specialist position at the middle school. So we just got that word in the past week, and we're really excited about that. There are other grants that are out there that we're waiting to hear from, and there's some changes to insurance and billing at both the federal and local levels in terms of insurance that we're exploring, that we'll have a separate presentation on should we get to the point where we're ready to pursue that further, but we're definitely working hard on that as well. Mr. Ryan, if you go to the next screen, another area the task force specifically spent time on was making sure that we had procedures in place around crisis assessment as a district. So we have revisions to the suicide prevention policy. Thank you to Dr. Faulkner for his work on helping us make sure that that's right. We're then reviewing our procedures. So you go from policy to those like set procedures that these are the exact steps we'll take when there is a risk. And so we are currently revising those, and also thank you to Dr. Faulkner for his willingness to help us there. Dr. Faulkner was also talking about training that the CSIU has offered, and we had many staff members participate in QPR and mental health first aid trainings that were provided for the CSIU. And we have mental health specialists and guidance counselors who are receiving an extra QPR training, like a train the trainer training that is coming up, so then they'll be able to bring that back to the remainder of the staff. So that's happening kind of as we speak. Mr. Ryan, if you go to the next screen. And then finally, within our task force, we wanted to make sure that we're properly communicating with families, with the community, about not only mental health, but just things that are happening at the school in general. So we're keeping those lines of communication open in a really preventative way. So one of the things that we did do was update our website, and we specifically have a mental health drop-down as one of our main menu items, and there are resources there for parents. We are using class tag parent communication at all levels, so parents have one place to go to find out about all of their kids' different subject areas, school, district. So as a family, you just have one place to find out all of that information. And then we're universally using Google Classroom and Remind for student communication. So really trying to streamline how students and families know about the things that are happening. And before I pass this over to Mr. Moser, that's the end of updates on mental health task force initiatives. Certainly happy to answer any questions on that topic.
I don't have a question, but I've said this probably several times before, but I think one of the things that we were concerned about with the task force was, you know, we can show all these wonderful things that we could be doing or should be doing, and you know, wave the flag, and then 6 months later, you know, put the flag down. But that is quite the opposite of what's happened. It is so, and I've had just you know, in a tiny little smidge part, but the boots on the ground and the work that has been done to bring to life the recommendations that were provided by the task force, it is going to make a fundamental difference, I think, in the district. And it is, you know, we are backing up what we said. We're not done, right? But we have started down the pathway, as you saw, at literally every level, to make sure that we can create a healthy, well environment for all of our students and all of our employees, and also help the kids who need it the most. And the creativity and the commitment that I have seen from the administration and all of the building leaders and all of the teachers, it's just, obviously this is my heart, right? It's my life's work, and it's such a beautiful thing to see it actually, us actually taking steps and making concrete changes that will make a difference for these kids. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. I certainly just want to shout out all of our building leaders. When we talked about those cultural changes and those school-wide positive events, it takes a lot of time and effort to pull off, and just change of culture is challenging, and every principal has worked so hard to make that happen. Also, just both Ms. Wenrick and Mrs. Willoughby have taken an incredible lift of taking interventions that have either not existed or been kind of loose in the district and not well documented, and creating a system for that, and creating a structure in the district, and redoing the child study, you know, process. Although it looks like one line item on a bulleted list, it's just like a wealth of time and energy. So we have a fantastic administrative team, and I'm just really proud of the work that we've done, and just kudos to everybody sitting there. Mr. Moser and I also wanted to share what we're doing in terms of assessments. So one of the big changes that we have done for this year is to put in diagnostic assessments that help us understand where kids are at right now. So in the same ways with mental health, we want to make, you know, a kid needs something else, we move them to tier 2, we see what they need. We want to be doing the same thing for academics. We have curriculum that's been coming through over the last few months, and so we just felt like the board needed to see this diagnostic data to understand, first of all, I think why it's so important that we have this data to make instructional decisions, and why some of the curricular changes that we're making are necessary, because we don't have as many students on grade level, quite frankly, as we'd like to see. So we're working hard to make those changes in the district. And just would love to shout out Mr. Moser for his work in creating this assessment plan for us, and I'll turn it over to him to share these results with you.
Yeah, so what we're going to share is the beginning of the year. Can we go back 1 second, Mr. Ryan? I'm sorry. The beginning of the year norm reference diagnostic assessment summary. Just so everybody is aware, what norm reference, if you're not familiar with it, it means compared to everybody else who took the same test at the same time. So it removes the, well, we had this, we had that, this went on, because if you're looking at first graders, it's every first grader in the country who took this test within the same window as our students. If you're same as if you're looking at 8th grade. I do want to give a little notation here that what you're going to see seems a little, I'm going to admit it looks a little wonky because we use several different measures depending upon the grade level. And the reason why we are doing that is because in some cases we are still under contract with a prior with a prior assessment, and so we can't just throw that out. That would be irresponsible. We do get some of the same information, but obviously there are questions of validity depending upon how many other districts are using it and how many other students are included in that norming of the data. So if we can, we'll go through first reading. What you see here is a report on our DIBELS assessments from the beginning of the year. So we will look at this multiple times throughout the year, and we will be presenting updates with comparisons to look for growth, because again, achievement follows growth. We can't expect to turn results around overnight, but if we're continuously growing, eventually achievement follows that. So what you see here is the red essentially represents those students who are below grade level, significantly below grade level. Yellow would represent those who are slightly below grade level. Green would be on grade level, and blue would be basically well beyond the expectations of that grade level. So if you look at those actual percentages, you can see this is reading for K through 2. Our kindergarten teachers, it's about 63% of our students are slightly below or significantly below where we would expect them to be nationally when they're coming in our doors. And that's important to recognize, because this does not speak to any teachers or what they've done so far. This data was done in the first couple of weeks of school, and I want to make that point very clear, that everything we look at tonight is the beginning of the year snapshot, and that is really important to understand. But we also, if we want to get to where we want to go, we need to know where we currently are. And you can see first grade then about 46% below, and then that number does decrease to second grade. So what that tells me, if we looked at a historical pattern and kindergarten was around the same percentage over the past 3 years, you can see evidence of a significant growth. Of course, we don't have that data, so we don't know that. Longitudinally, we need to begin to look at that in a comprehensive way. Still, work cut out for us. We know that we have to have a systematic approach to teaching kids how to read. And when students are still struggling after being explicitly taught foundational elemental skills for literacy, we need to provide a system of interventions, as Dr. Need was mentioning, that will put in place those supports that those students need, so that we can see that growth over the course of not only 1 year, but over the course of 3 years. If we go to the next slide, Mr. Ryan, you'll see it, like I said, a slightly different system. We have instituted NWEA MAP, which is a diagnostic assessment with one of the highest validity rates of all norm referenced assessments in the country this year at Liberty Valley only. This is broken down a little bit more into 5 categories, and what you see there are essentially red and into that peach color would be below, or in the red case, significantly below. Yellow would be just slightly below, and you see green and blue representing the same things as the others. It's amazing how education has taken to using these same colors in a systematic way, no matter what it is. But you'll see that third grade coming in the door, only 37% of our students were on or above our expected grade level at the beginning of the year in third grade reading. So again, you see that sort of increase over 4th and 5th grade, different cohorts. Again, we don't have the longitudinal data to compare to, but the nice thing as we move forward here is that we will have longitudinal data, at least from this year. When we do the middle of the year diagnostic, we will be able to compare those results against these results. And we will be able to see what percentages of students have grown and shifted. Essentially what we want to see more blue, more green, less yellow, peach, and red. And that is sort of what you hope for and what you plan for, and how we attack our instruction throughout the course of the year, so that more and more students are falling in that on grade level or below grade level. We can go to 6 through 8 as the next slide in reading. And you're back to, you can see 46% of 6th graders who are on grade level. Yellow in this case essentially is 1 grade level below, and red is 2 or more grade levels below. You see 38% in 7th grade on grade level at the beginning of the year, and 44% in 8th grade on grade level at the beginning of the year. So obviously, as we move through our our school year and we really pay attention to data and how students are performing and what they're struggling in and making sure that we're building in supports, it will be something that is ongoing, and you continuously follow the data, and again, making sure that the interventions we put in place are working, and when they're not, then we adjust course. Then we look at why are they not working. What we don't want to do is the same interventions over and over again for students when they're not working. And so as Dr. Need said, kind of that system that Mrs. Willoughby and Ms. Wenrick have been working so diligently on will allow us to actually say, here's what we've done for student X so far. Has it worked? Has it not? If not, okay, what do we need to do next? So it's really prescriptive, and it's systematic, and it's intentional. And I think those are the things that we need to get in the habit and really the manner of using data in that way. If we go to reading summary, you'll see an overall percentage. And I will send this out to the board, but you can see here it's just kind of broken down into well below grade level, 1 grade level below, or on or above grade level. I've tried to simplify it in this chart. But you can see those percentages are something that we need to be concerned about. Because again, this is at the beginning of the year and compared to all other students who took the same assessment for whatever grade level they were in. And you see that in first and second grade and fifth grade are the only grades in which we have over 50% entering on or above grade level. Now, 1 grade level below, that is not a crisis because they literally just started that grade. If we hit middle of the year and those numbers are still intact, then we have a problem because they are moving towards slipping into the red over time. I hope that makes sense to everybody. We can shift to math unless if you want to pause if anybody has any questions for reading in general.
I mean, so you stated that we don't have longitudinal data surrounding these assessments, correct?
We do in some regards, but we have not necessarily put that together yet because the emphasis hasn't been placed. Dibbles we would, NWEA map we would not, iReady we would.
Because I was curious if the Dibbles scores were lower than historically had been coming in at the initial stop, or this was sort of the levels which people had been coming in. But the second thing I was going to say is that even though you don't actually have longitudinal data, in a sense you do have a snapshot of whether we're failing or succeeding, because presumably most of the kids in second grade were here for first grade.
We're here, yes.
And so when we see a consistent pattern where there's 60% of the kids are not hitting grade level when they're entering, that says we're doing something not quite right. And that sort of pushes us in the direction that there needs to be substantial change. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons we've been talking about the curriculum and curriculum revisions, because what we're currently doing isn't working. And not to, I mean, direct it at the teachers at all, but this is evidence that whatever we have them doing isn't entirely effective.
Yeah, I would respond that one of the surefire ways to actually see significant growth, I believe in my observation, in my conversations with teachers, I think Dr. Need, I don't want to speak for her, but teachers are working incredibly hard.
Sure.
And I don't think that's not been the case at all.
It may just be we don't have
some,
effective intervention.
Yes, sometimes
right?
sometimes we don't know exactly what our next best step is. Without data,
Sure.
We're kind of in the dark making some decisions, and I think that's what I want to get across is that this data helps shine the light on the concerns and allows us to find the path forward so that our students can be successful. This is not to be critical of any teachers. I think, teachers work incredibly hard. It's a very difficult job, but if you don't know the next best step, sometimes you have to make your best assumption, and that's difficult when you're dealing with 20 first graders or 120 seventh graders.
Well, I'm actually grateful for this because this is the information I asked for a year and some change ago at the first academic affairs meeting, that the data didn't exist, or at least wasn't actively being used.
And I think
over a year and a half ago.
And one of the things that I think we want to partner with teachers who we know are working incredibly hard, and what we're doing in our professional development days is you're seeing an overview of the data.
Sure.
But what we're presenting teachers with is it'll have their students' names, their specific scores, and those scores get broken down into standards that need to be addressed.
Making it useful so they can target it.
Yes, and
Yeah,
so we're using professional development days so that so that teachers can place students into purposeful groups for like common skills that they need to work on and design lesson plans around that. And we also have some online programming through Study Island and iReady where students' results can be plugged in, and then it personalizes the work that they'll get. So we're giving you an overview, but we're certainly not just crossing our fingers and like hoping we get higher percentages. We're helping teachers look specifically at their students'
Well,
data.
I appreciate you're giving the teachers the tools to succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, without the necessary tools, they can't target any of these things. And I appreciate that it seems to be, an additional emphasis on finding interventions that actually work and thoughtful about the process.
And I think even a documentation, so again, we've been saying, yay, Miss Wenrick, yay, Mrs. Willoughby today, but even using, so Sapphire is our student information system, but even documenting the things that we're doing, so that way when a student comes up in 6th grade and needs reading support, we don't keep doing this, we look and see what was successful, what wasn't, so we're in the beginning of the stages now, too, of making sure we're documenting all interventions that students are getting.
One of the commitments we made early on at Academic Affairs when we talked about professional development days and this assessment system that we did discuss as early as last spring, but a lot over the summer, and there was a lot of conversation around it, was the data would be disaggregated so that it could be actionable for teachers so that they didn't spend any of that professional development time having to sort through and make sense of the data. We got that in their hands. We did our best to make it as actionable as possible. And I would say we had a professional development day just a few weeks ago. And I actually, one of the things we got feedback from was that the teachers felt really good about what they had in their hands and that they could just sit down and work.
Well, this is one of the reasons that I got involved with the board, was the suspicion that a lot of these things were going on that wasn't entirely transparent. So I really appreciate one of my main concerns is being directly targeted, along with mental health, which was one of the other main reasons I got involved.
I had a question about the norm data. Does that include, is that all students, or does it also include students who might have an IEP or a 504 as a part of that?
It includes all students who took that assessment. So
I mean, but I mean for in our district.
In our district, it would include all students with the exception of potentially life skills students.
Right. And when we look at this sort of stratification, how does this map on? Because inevitably, right, you're going to have people. You're never going to have 0% well below grade level. That's just not how it works. So I'm curious, and maybe we don't have this right now, but I am curious, how does this stratification map onto the actual norms? So in other words, when they break Dibbles down into that, and at the national level, how do we stack up against that, or maybe even in the IU region? I'd be curious to see the comparison. Where do we fall on those benchmarks relative to the rest of the country as far as the breakdowns are concerned? Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. We do not have that data at this time. We can certainly work towards that when we come around to this at the mid-year point. We certainly wanted to focus right now on just where are we at, because I think that's something that, quite frankly, we couldn't really ascertain when we first started last fall and last winter.
And to echo what everybody is saying, and this allows us to make database decisions. So, I mean, it's the name of the game, and it's the right thing to do.
Could some of these results be from like a lag from COVID?
Well, they could be, but as I think the point of norm referencing is that everybody's results would be a lag from COVID. So certainly is built in, and you would see, I know this from prior experience, we saw norm in a previous position, I saw norm reference scores go up outside after COVID, which largely attributed to how COVID was quite honestly how COVID was handled within that district, which was consistent school. I mean, we now know being in person in school consistently makes a huge critical difference for students. Like, there's no more, we actually now have data to support that, but if we're looking at that, the reality is this takes into account, and it's against all other students at that same grade level. So they all experience COVID as well. What it could take into account is potentially how did Danville in particular navigate through COVID instructionally, if that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
ahead, Chris.
is the population public schools only nationally, or is it all schools, private and parochial, et cetera?
It would be all students who take it. That
Do we know that?
So we don't.
know.
I'm sure there are some private schools and parochial schools who use these systems. Certainly, I know, for instance, NWEA MAP has 75,000 public schools that actually use NWEA MAP. So that's one number. That is a public school number. Are there private schools? Probably, absolutely in there.
The materials that we're using now, the HMH system materials, and the curriculum that's been put in place, are we confident that that gives teachers the tools, the targets to get our kids reading at grade level?
Yeah, what we're
incrementally
currently
throughout the system.
Yeah, what we're currently doing is really unpacking standards, which is, essentially what these are measuring is state standards along the way, unpacking standards to align instruction and assessment to state standards. So in some cases, HMH, for instance, is aligned to the national Common Core standards. So there is some work that should be done in terms of making sure that we are aligning not only the Common Core standards, but the PA Common Core standards in particular.
Right.
Our assessments are doing
They're
so.
not exactly the same.
No,
They're close.
They're very, very
Yeah,
close,
okay.
but there are some slight differences.
Okay. All right. So systemically, the things that have come to the board, the things that we've approved and been passed back for the system to work through are in place.
Yes.
And now it's just a matter of implementing.
Yes.
Okay. Questions, comments, anyone else?
We still
Yeah,
have.
I got
Go ahead.
one more, if you don't mind, and forgive me for my ignorance.
No, it's okay.
I just don't know. How are we expecting and I'm just going to relate those numbers to a single classroom. How can we expect a teacher in this classroom who has 30% of her students well below grade level to separate those students out from the remainder of the classroom and work with them in addition to what her normal curriculum is, but with what they're also lagging behind? What's our plan to do that, and how the Sam Hill are we going to do that?
So what you're referring to would be a plan for small group instruction within the general education classroom, which, yes, we do have a plan for elementary classroom of 20 kids. Not all 20 kids are on the same spot. We know that some of them, anywhere from 4 to possibly 12, could be below grade level. But what we have is the ability to actually drill down in exactly the skills, and this is what Dr. Need was mentioning, not just looking and saying, well, they're below grade level. What we know is here are the specific skills where that is causing their overall score to be below grade level. And so what we can do is group those students accordingly for that specific target skill. So every other student in the room might be working on something else that they can independently work on. And we are taking 20, 30 minutes with each small group along the way to really target those skills that we know based upon our diagnostic data. This is why the diagnostic data is so critical, that we know those students are lacking. And so that could change skill to skill, week to week. Students will be grouped differently based upon their individual data, but then put into reasonable small groups throughout a longer literacy block in K through 5 to be able to really kind of focus in on those particular skills.
But before, they didn't even have the data. Now you can actually give the teachers the data, what needs to be targeted for the individual students, and they can actually do that intervention, where before, whatever we were doing wasn't even based on that. So that's a big step forward.
We're also using reading specialists and special ed teachers during that time. And so some of those interventions are done with the regular ed teacher, but depending on like the level of score, demonstrating the level of need, students are grouped with which teacher would be best to provide those interventions.
This question is going to be I'm sorry.
Oh, go.
This question is going to be answered, I'm almost sure, as you go through the various subjects. And maybe I shouldn't even ask it, but are we finding that the same students are lagging in multiple subjects?
In many cases, absolutely. There are some students who demonstrate a discrepancy in one or the other, but I mean, I would say that a large percentage, if they struggle in reading, they probably struggle in every other
They're gonna
subject.
struggle everywhere more than
Quite
likely.
frankly.
Yeah.
So we will take a look at K through 8 math as well. So if we go to the next slide, Mr. Ryan, you see K through 2 math iReady, and here you see some scores that are very concerning. 89% of our students in grade 1 are at least one grade level below at the beginning of first grade, and 87% are at least one grade below at the beginning of second grade. Mind you, in grade 1, there's only been one other year of school, and in grade 2, there's only been 2 other years of school. So to be in first grade and be one grade level below already is a concern. And so we have met, I have personally met with math teachers at the primary school to talk about how can we fill in some of those gaps. It was a great meeting, a great conversation. We identified prior power standards, essentially, or priority standards. That means those are skills that are missing that are absolutely needed to be successful on grade level in the current year as well, and developed a plan for how we could address those things. To Mr. Clauser's point, actually, basically what we're saying is all of our students basically need those priority standards. And so the way that we are approaching math is that prior to a new unit or topic, we are explicitly reteaching the priority standards that are necessary for a student to now be successful in the current year. So we will continue to measure that as we move forward. And what we did is we worked through creating a document that actually outlines exactly which lessons to teach prior to a new unit.
So these students entered the system after COVID.
Correct.
So how does this happen? I mean, COVID has nothing to do with it. They weren't in school then.
I think
Before.
I think number one, not paying attention to data can lead to poor data. Because if you're not paying attention to it from the start, a small problem can definitely continuously grow. And so if we're paying attention to it from the start, you can work on closing those gaps before it becomes a last year problem and fix it in the current year. We do not do the diagnostic with the math diagnostic with kindergartners, specifically because at the beginning of the year, kindergartners are not ready to sit and independently take an assessment on a computer. Just going to say that we work on school. You know, our kindergarten teachers work. I think that's the hardest job in the district, quite frankly. And they work on really kind of just teaching students how to be students first and foremost. But I think by not paying attention to it and not knowing it, I mean, quite frankly, I think one of the things that was discussed was that we haven't really even looked at primary math data for a very long time. That was the feedback that I got from teachers when I met with them. So if you're not looking at it and not considering it, you're just moving along and thinking.
And not pairing that then with small group instruction, where often skills are reinforced.
Yeah,
How do oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. No,
Oh, excuse me. How does this, I mean, I'm still trying to get my head around from a statistical standpoint. I believe in the metrics. I believe in that until you measure, you'll never know where you are. You take some subjectivity out, and there's all the tools that you do that. I'm just trying to get my head around the fact that we're talking about some barometer that's a national barometer, and you can have inner city schools, and then you can have some high-end specialty private schools, and now you've got the two ends, and we're trying to like find our way. And I know if you create consistency, that has some value, but what about like in like schools? Is there a way to just get, and not saying that this is incredibly valuable, I don't want to undermine this, so I'm not trying to do that, but what I'm trying to think about in a pragmatic sense is you talk about it, like how much of that could be considered just the structure, the personalities, like more tangible stuff. Like, and if it can't be answered, I don't mean to. But I'm just trying to sit and digest this because you make good points, and I agree with it that there's so much value until you measure yourself. You really can't get much better, you know. But like I sit here in my mind and I'm like, Okay, so you're going to say that we're doing not so well compared to whom? Well, the whole country. I don't live in the whole country. I live here. I go to the store. This is my population, and like, how does that have some substance to it to make this kind of have more?
I think it's an incredibly fair question. What we would look for here is consistent growth. Again, so the next time we take this, we would definitely expect to see more green if we're, but we don't have a benchmark because it's not a criterion based assessment. There is no local norm, if you will, or regional norm test that we could even do. So norm testing, the more people you get in it, statistically, the more valid the results are going to be. Now, nothing's 100% valid for your context, but the more students who are actually participating in a norm reference test, more consistent it is that it's aligned to what that grade level is according to national Common Core standards. To your point, for 3 through 8, what we will be doing, and this is important where we marry the two because norm reference is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. We will begin looking at criterion-based assessments as well that are just Pennsylvania standard benchmarks. And so what the state has prescribed and said, this is what a 3rd grade student through an 8th grade student should be able to do in both ELA and math. And that aligns with the skills and the standards assessed on PSSAs. So that benchmark is coming up here in a couple of weeks, but that is very specific, right? You're not going to necessarily see that green shift because students are going to be kind of they're measured against the benchmark and not against their peers in that assessment. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we believe in a true system of assessment where we are not just taking one data point and that's the be-all, end-all of what we need to look at. We're marrying a norm reference, nationally norm reference diagnostic exam, along with a state level benchmark exam. And so we may see students who don't do well on the norm reference benchmark or norm reference exam, but might do extremely well on this one, and they're doing well in class. And we think about triangulation of data to steal a term from the business world. We really believe in that, getting multiple data points to look at the whole picture. One of those data points may certainly be an outlier in some cases, which I think speaks to kind of your point. And if we saw that consistently, that one of our assessments, and it specifically norm reference, was an outlier against the benchmark and local assessments, then we would question whether or not we want to continue with that norm reference assessment or if we wanted to go and use another one rather.
Chris, my one objection to sort of that line of thinking is that we have no reason to assume the students in Danville are any less capable than students anywhere else. And so I would want us to do well no matter who we're compared against. And I think that's where, when I look at this data and I see that we've gone from, 12 to 14% in math over the course of a year, presumably, that we are not doing well enough. And that may be that we're not giving the teachers the right tools or the right diagnostic information, or there's something going on bigger in the community that's pushing kids to not do as well, but I have no reason to assume the kids in Danville are any less capable than anywhere else, and they should be at, better than 14 or 12%. And so this is useful even if we don't have a local norm reference because, historically, if you look back as far as 2018, 2019, and look at the data that was gathered back then, you see that we have consistently compared well. And this is a more recent thing. And yes, maybe part of it is COVID, and part of it is this, and part of it is that, and maybe it's had other effects on the community that we're not seeing. But we should be capable of getting back to where we were, if not better than where we were 5, 10 years ago. At least that's my thought.
Yeah, and I appreciate this is a good party conversation. I wasn't trying to shed a light in the direction that's saying that there's a level of competency by any way, shape, or form. I was just trying to get my head around that we're discussing a metrics that is providing value that we are going to continue to measure, but yet at the same time it's factoring into certain levels of decision making.
Sure.
And so I wanted to just get an appreciation for how that overarching view of something as broad in my mind statistically as that, gets to a point where it has the collective value. And I think between both of those points that helps in that. And I like that it's.
Yeah, it is certainly not the only point we're looking at.
Yeah. And I was just suggesting, I could end my thought here, but I was just, when I was talking about a little bit about like the norms and like schools, I was just saying like if part of this analysis includes when we look at like schools and say, hey, everybody around here is in the same boat. Maybe we need to look at this a little bit more outside the classroom. I don't know what those answers are. I'm not trying to suggest a solution here. Just trying to get an appreciation for that.
The best
The statistics and data are good, but they could also be, something that the best vehicle.
the best way to actually to look at that regionally is through when we look at end of the year PSSA and Keystone results, because that we can narrow down to our IU, our state, and we can really kind of look at those percentages against schools that are very similar to us, either demographically, size-wise, whatever, structurally, whatever you want to look at. Then you can actually dive into that a little bit.
But if we look at last year's data in relation to that, we are not doing as well as we've done historically, even in the
That's
IU.
correct.
Yes.
And so that supports the fact that this is not working here. So we have more global data that supports this, even among comparisons to other schools. So this is a significant, so the reason I'm bothered by it is it's a significant change from maybe 5 years ago, or, maybe a slightly longer timeline than that. So we need to get back to doing things that we were doing in the past, or do them in a new way that works, right?
Other questions or comments?
Go to 3 to
Move on.
5 math, if that works.
Go ahead.
It's going to be fairly similar. You're
I'm
going to see, fifth grade fairly high in comparison. Actually, I would say that those results bode well. I can't quite see those numbers. I think it's around 56% if I remember correctly, but I could be a bit off in terms of putting that together, or 50%. I'm sorry, about 50%. That's at the beginning of the year there. And the final piece is the next slide, which is our 6 through 8 math. Again, you see 47% at 6th grade. So coming in from 5th grade, 47% already on grade level. So that would be against what it means to be on grade level at the end of the year, is an encouraging number. So if we keep our eye on the target there, we should yield some really strong results. I do believe that is the last slide. So if anybody has any other questions,
say
the
there's
math
the
summary.
summary.
Yeah.
Math summary. Okay.
Kindergarten not available, but I will share this out with the board at large, so that you have this information to refer back to at some point in time. And again, we'll update with our mid-year norm referenced assessments probably late January, or probably early February actually is when it would be, because we would be doing those in January.
And that takes us to our district highlights. Mr. Varhalik, if you want to tell us about some of the exciting things happening at the high school.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep us brief. But the a lot of things going on in the month of September. Jeff, you want to scroll down just a little bit? The video up top just highlights the Mr. Wagner and a group of students held almost like an unveiling of the first iron ore. Well, it's a replica of the iron ore, and the a mule that carried some of the materials and things like that, and so that was unveiled for out on Mill Street for the Iron Heritage Festival, and a group of students were interviewed by the news, and so that little clip's there for you to watch. The sports in the fall here are obviously off and running, and a lot of our sports programs are really setting themselves up very well for postseason. We also are happy to announce our students versus staff events that are coming up here, and we kicked it off last week with our girls soccer team. So our staff were out competing against them. So it's a really neat event, and gives our staff an opportunity to get outside the classroom and compete against some of our student athletes. Down at the bottom, just highlighting some of the things that we had just talked about with students and attendance and how important that is. We held a Ironman Cyber Academy pizza party, which the students love. We try to do that once a month and gets a lot of our students into the building and give them some incentive for not only coming into the building, but also for achieving some of the great things that they're doing with Mr. Sample and the other staff that are down there to help our Cyber Academy students. Next. We had some guest speakers come in, so that highlights some of those. And then our Bloomsburg Fair events that students went to participate in. And next, Jeff. Just some quick highlights of some smaller events that happened at the school and outside in the community. And then finally, on the last, well, there's some highlights, obviously, for some upcoming things for graduation and homecoming, some things for seniors, that is. And then down at the bottom there, if you go down to the next one, Jeff, just some highlights, and obviously looking at in the month of October, we have the PAYS survey coming up, just for public knowledge. That survey goes out to students and is an awesome opportunity for us to get a lot of different perspectives on not only culture within the building, but also some information from students regarding some more tier 2 and tier 3 information for us. And then PSATs are on the 20th as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Snover.
I'll go very quickly here. As Dr. Need already alluded to, we did have a couple weeks ago our first Forge Friday. Again, this is an activity that we're running every month. We have an early dismissal schedule. All the teachers and staff members in the building were able to select different activities that they're interested and passionate about, and create different sign-ups for students. The students got to pick their top 3, and every student was able to get one of their top 3 choices. As Dr. Need did mention, we had everything from fishing to volleyball. There was arts and crafts, golf. We had makeovers. And there were some boys that were involved in the the spa makeovers. Sign language, board games, cards. So it was just a really fun afternoon. We're going to do this every month at the middle school. So just a time to relax, and the teachers, I think, really enjoyed it because they got to share something that they were passionate about with students, and the students had an opportunity to choose to work with that teacher and explore that activity with them. So I think everyone had a good time. If we could. So we did mention at the last board meeting, the mural, we are about 99.9% done with that. It should be finished by the end of this week. Please feel free to drive behind the middle school, or when you're coming through the tunnel, look to your left and you can see a very colorful, beautiful mural on the back side of the school. Katie Trainer has been working very, very hard to finish that up. Of course, our students and our art classes and our art club have been working on that for the last month to get the panels done. So again, it's almost completely done, so please come check that out. You just keep scrolling if you would, Jeff. We did just have as again mentioned by Dr. Need, a pep rally on Friday afternoon that we recognized all of our fall athletes. It was the first pep rally we've had since pre-COVID, so a lot of students actually were questioning what was a pep rally. I think now that they figured that out, we'll do another one in the winter to recognize the winter athletics. So lots of things going on at the middle school. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, we did do the casting for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or excuse me, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The cast has been picked, the stage crew has been picked, so in late April we will be ready to do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at the middle school. Thank you.
It's going to be wonderful. Thank you. And Dr. Reinard for Liberty Valley newsletter. And I think I did share this news with the board, but Dr. Reinard defended her defense in the last month. So last month I probably introduced her as Mrs. Reinard, and today I get to introduce her as Dr. Reinard.
Congratulations.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Need. So something that was definitely new to me coming into Liberty Valley was Rock Your School. This was just a super fun day. Last week, our Liberty Valley students and teachers came dressed in their best rock star gear. All of our kiddos really lived up to the expectation. They came in with crazy hair. We had mullets. We had kids that were dressed up for the 80s, 90s. It was just a really fun day. It is a national event where classrooms and schools all over the country are basically dressing up in their rock star gear. It's kind of, pretty much just a way for students to have fun at school. So we did spend, the day doing different things in the classrooms, different activities related to just rocking out at Liberty Valley. It was just a really great day for the kids and the staff. If you could. Another really fun thing at Liberty Valley this month was we started our clubs, Morning Milers. This is something where all 3 of our grade levels on different days of the week are able to go outside in the morning when they arrive at school. They eat breakfast, and then if it's their day, so 3rd grade has a day, 4th grade, 5th grade, if it's their day, they get to go outside and they basically walk the blacktop outside in the recess area, and for every lap they get a prize. They get a little gummy band, which is really cool. We have tons and tons of kids out there in the morning. And another thing that I like to do in the morning is when I hit every classroom and say good morning to either the students that are in the classrooms and the teachers. I'm always finding some of the kiddos are at the windows cheering on their classmates who are at Morning Miler. So I thought it was really cool to just put a picture of some of the students. These are students from Mr. Long's homeroom that are just cheering on their friends. So I thought that was really cute. We also have Girls on the Run, which is happening at night after school, Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. We have tons and tons of girls that are participating in this activity, and they basically stay after school and they run, obviously, but they're talking about all different things. Talk about mental health. These girls are just spending time after school and just talking about what it's like to be an adolescent, talking about what it's like to be a girl, and just talking about making good decisions. It's just a really, really great program. So that started at Liberty Valley. We also had our art club had started up again. If you've ever been in the Liberty Valley building, you probably see just amazing, beautiful artwork everywhere. Teresa Madison, who is our art teacher, she has done an amazing job just decorating the building with our students' artwork. And our art club, 3, 4, and 5, they all have, just like Morning Milers, they all have a time in the morning that they can go and join the art club, and they make different projects. And the pictures are from the Bloomsburg Fair. Our Liberty Valley students had done mosaics and Aboriginal dot paintings this year. So those were all at the fair. It's beautiful. They're all hanging up now. So if ever get an opportunity to come to Liberty Valley, just walk the halls because the artwork is fantastic. We have a lot of things coming up. Since this was put out, we had our picture day. We had Danville Dash. These are all things I'll talk about in our October newsletter. But a quick shout out, we have our Family Fun Night, which is going to be this coming Wednesday from 5 to 7. We have our Scholastic Book Fair taking place right now. And also we are going to have tons of, not tons, but several food trucks on the property that night. So this Wednesday, please come out, get some books, get some food, and that'll be an opportunity for you to see the building. So we're going to do that. We have our Fall Festival coming up, just a lot of really fun things that our Liberty Valley kiddos are going to get to participate in. And one more thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, literacy is one of the things that we are really trying to focus on at Liberty Valley. It is our initiative this year, and I thought it was really cool to just highlight that not only are we spending a lot of time within the classroom making sure that the students are getting what they need in terms of small groups and different interventions related to reading, but we're also really finding ways to make reading fun. So not only are we really dedicating ourselves in the classrooms, and our teachers are dedicating themselves to make sure that our kiddos are getting what they need to become grade level and proficient readers, but they're also going out of their way to make sure that reading is still fun, because they're still kids. And we want them to have a love of reading. This is Mrs. Lau's class, Andrea Lau. She is one of our third grade teachers. Her and some of the other third grade teachers did cafe, like Starbucks cafes. And I had gone into her classroom and took some pictures of her, and it actually felt like Starbucks. She had the cups. It was decorated in Starbucks colors. She had like a waitress outfit on, went around, took their orders, gave them chocolate milk. It was adorable. So just highlighting that, we're really still trying to make literacy fun. And there's a lot of hard work to be done, but they're still kids, and we are still focusing on the fact that we just want them to love reading. And I think I might have one more. Oh, look at that. Just highlighting Miss Wenrick because she's amazing. So we're going to do an LV faculty spotlight every month, and it was just her turn.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reinhardt. As we pass to Ms. Geis, I would love to just point out that you highlighted Morning Milers, which is an awesome program, but kudos to Mrs. Bartholomew, who's with us as an audience member today, who started that at DPS. So excited that it got picked up at Liberty Valley, too. So now we have kindergarten through fifth graders running in the mornings. Lots of future track stars for you.
Okay, so Danville Primary School participated in Rock Your School Day also. It's one of everyone's favorite day of the school year. I'm guilty. It's my favorite day. So that was on September 27th, and you can see a picture of the staff. The kids enjoy it, or the teachers enjoy it just as much as the kids do. And on this day, you have to register your school. So I always register us every year. There were 2.5 million students impacted or actually worldwide from just this one day, where teachers celebrate learning with their kids and teach things kind of outside of the box. So we started off the day with the local band. The kids had no idea that the band was coming. We said we were having a little assembly, and they just showed up to a concert at 9 a.m. in the morning. We had an ice cream truck, and then Hitty from Commotion Dance Studio ended the day for us and taught the kids just a really fun dance. So it was just a great day all around. Mm-hmm. And then we celebrated National Custodian Day on October 2nd. Our custodians, along with our secretaries, are at the heart of our school, so we're so thankful for all that they do for us. And then the next thing was, this is a new program for our first graders. It's called Music and Mindfulness, and they're just a lovely group of ladies. There are 3 of them. They are local, who will come to DPS once a month for first grade and do some social lessons focusing on SEL that incorporates music and puppetry, and the kids really, really enjoyed it. Then we have some upcoming events. The biggest thing this month is Trunk or Treat on October 25th from 5 to 7 here at the primary school. And then this week, we are kicking off our first parent university. We did this prior to COVID. We're bringing this back. So this is open to all DPS parents and guardians. And that is at 6 o'clock on Thursday night, and our reading teachers will be presenting on how to help your child be a successful reader at home. And it's free, so all parents are welcome to attend. And then I just included some great pictures at the bottom. Dr. Need and Mr. Moser have been talking tonight about how we are prioritizing small group reading, and you can see our kiddos working on sight words and letter ID.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Geis, and I'm excited for parent universities to come back. So I know that that's tons of work. So thank you, and what a great topic to start the year off. And happy October to Head Start Awareness Month.
So Mr. Riker talked about, but October is Head Start Awareness Month. We're in our 58th year. So that has been very exciting. That is nationally as well as here in Danville, so that's very exciting. And just to highlight some things that we want to do to really get how important early learning is, and just to get our name out and that we are part of this community. We're going to have child artwork displayed at local businesses. We have an impact survey going out to our community stakeholders, and we are doing a awareness video asking current parents, past parents, staff, school board members, teachers, anyone of what how Head Start has impacted them. So that we are starting to put together now. Doing a lot of social media awareness and having a lot of classroom guests invited to join our classrooms to read, do any activity. Please, if anybody wants to come be a part of our classrooms, the kids love having all of you there and just doing anything, reading a book, they love just people coming into the classroom. So that we're going to be busy October, but just really excited to celebrate Head Start.
Thank you so much. And just the final part of superintendent's report is something that you had mentioned about PHAC travel. So just a quick update on something from our athletics committee.
Yeah, so one of the conversations during the athletics committee meeting was about the PHAC and the way that it is designed in terms of divisional alignment and who plays whom and travel and things of that nature. So I know historically the PHAC originally when at its conception was designed, and one of the points that they tried to make was that it would be less student travel, so students wouldn't have to, number one, leave school early, number two, get home really, really late, and number three, not have to travel great distances. We think as a district it's time to open up some conversations with our fellow PHAC schools to consider addressing what we see right now as two issues that both stem from our main concern, and I think that is that the PHAC is not geographically aligned. And so literally districts jump over, in some cases one, in some cases two or three geographic locations in order to play somebody who could be an hour or even more away. That leads to a lot of early dismissals at times, specifically for fall and spring sports, but it also leads to a lot of late nights where students are coming home. They're getting home after 10, sometimes 11 o'clock, and are expected to arrive at school the next day at 7:30, 7:45 to be participant learners. So really the two concerns that we have that we think we need to seriously start having some discussions about are the student wellness due to travel in those late nights and early dismissals. And then on top of that, there is also a factor of cost, because we are traveling much further than what we actually need to participate in events. Not only our students, but our parents who are following them and going to watch our students participate. So those two issues are of concern, and we really want to start having some conversations with some of the other schools within the PHAC itself to see if we can get to a more manageable alignment that is based more on geography rather than enrollment.
I started this from the board level. Is anyone else saying anything about this? Is this just a Danville issue, or are we the only ones saying anything that you are aware of?
There are some other schools with whom we've had some preliminary conversations that have some concerns about a lot of the travel, especially with rising costs of travel. I mean, but really also focused on why are we not necessarily playing each other when it makes sense to play each other.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deeply into this because it's something that really should be pushed back out to the administrative level for the study, but I was a principal at Montgomery when this started, and at that point Montgomery, Muncie, Benton, Millville were in. Midwest wasn't in, Central Mountain wasn't in, Williamsport was a partial member. I don't think they played in many sports, but it has kind of morphed into this thing where many schools have left. It was an academic coalition that was disbanded about 10 years ago because they found that the needs that they felt were the same and the common goals that they held really weren't common at all, and it just disbanded about 2011, 12, something like that. And I looked through some things just out of curiosity, and I brought this up at the last meeting. And I'm not picking on any school. I'm sure they're great schools. I just don't understand what in the world Danville and Central Mountain are doing in the same division in any athletic venture. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a 116-mile round trip, and we're not in the same division with Bloomsburg. Central Mountain's a 6A school. It's a jointure of 4 school districts. It's enormous. I'm not saying we're not competitive. I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense for us to be traveling there in the winter We have a school that's 9 miles up the road. We have another one that's 11 miles, Southern Columbia, and I'm using Google Maps and MapQuest and all that stuff. In most sports, we're not aligned with those districts. We're not in divisions with those districts. Softball, we're with Jersey Shore, 90-mile round trip. Central Mountain, 116-mile round trip. Williamsport, 72-mile round trip. It just doesn't make any sense. I understand the need to collaborate with other leagues and to pull leagues together because there's some sports where you need that, like girls volleyball. We need the schools in Lycoming County because there aren't enough schools otherwise to create a division. There are other sports that not every district has, so I'm not saying we just need to split off and throw the whole thing away and start over. I am saying that I think common sense should rule here and there should be more geographical alignment, and it is important in this district. It's cost, it's lost class time, it's sleep deprivation, having kids have days where they can come in late because they're out too late at an athletic event the night before. It doesn't make any sense from an academic standpoint, and I know we've done that, and I understand why, and I'm not disputing that we need to do that in Danville at times, but we shouldn't have to. There's no reason we should be going on a Tuesday or Wednesday to these schools, and there's no reason why our football team should have to be running to Hollidaysburg and running to Huntington and playing Bellefonte. They're a fantastic program right now, and the Heartland has really let us down with their scheduling. I mean, we were calling Canada looking for games. I saw somebody else last week also had a game scheduled with the school in Canada, and the school in Canada dropped their sports. They didn't have a game. I don't know if that was a Heartland team, but it was somebody around here, so I think that it was connected. Anyway, it's not necessarily criticism of the Heartland per se. It is a criticism of not changing. As things have changed and evolved within the conference, there should have been other things done to take these things into account. So that's my feeling on it. I just think we should be aligned with Williamsburg Central, Southern Columbia, and schools like that more often, and we're not. And it's too much travel for the kids. And I'm a former coach. I know a lot of us have an athletic background here. I mean, I used to love playing Williamsport in big schools. It's not that we don't want to play them. I just don't think we should be grouped in a league with them. We should be playing them as a non-league or at our discretion. For me, it's just indefensible from the level of the conference to let it become what it's become since Midwest and Central Mountain and Williamsport have been added. So I'd just like to see information. One real quick statistic, I did do some mileage. Softball, 344 miles, 5 games. If we played 5 teams in our area, it's 142. They're doing the same thing, so it's actually 688 to 282, 400-mile disparity in travel. That's a huge amount of cost and lost class time because a lot of the schools were aligned together. They're played after school. And before daylight savings time, those games are starting at 4. So I'll leave it at that. And if I'm the only one that feels that way, then it's a moot point, and I'll just keep complaining until hopefully somebody listens or I get tired of complaining. But
I think two of the things we should probably closely look at administratively would be enrollment discrepancies, because I don't think the discrepancy between us and a lot of the schools that would make sense for us to be aligned with is greater than us with a lot of the schools that we currently are aligned with. It doesn't pass the eye test, but I would definitely like to dig into that data to be secure about that. And then obviously a travel and cost, distance and cost measurement of where we're at versus some of those that we might pass up.
one more thing, just real quickly. We have a great football program, great football team. A lot of our sports are fantastic. We're not playing Shikellamy. We're not playing Milton. We're not playing Shamokin. We're not playing Selinsgrove. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense. We're playing Hollidaysburg, and last year we played Line Mountain, and I don't get it. How it can be allowed to get that way.
In the defense, we were told at the last athletic committee that there is teams locally that are backing out of playing us in football because we are too good.
That is
at this moment.
And that is a huge problem as well, and I've heard that. And
that's why we're doing Huntington and Bellefonte.
But a properly run league does not allow for that. It was sad what happened to Southern a few years ago when they were where they were, and they tried to go out and get competition, and the league smacked them down. And now we're really, really good and have been for a few years, and we're in a situation that we shouldn't be in. The league should be looking out for us. You don't run from excellence.
Yeah, we will certainly continue to get some more information for the board, and also start having some of those conversations with the other PHAC schools.
That's it?
End of our time.
Okay.
That's it, you know.
Thank you. Public comment, 4.1. Agenda items only at this point. Anyone? No one? Okay. 6.1, Lakeshore quote. The board will take action to approve the quote from Lakeshore Learning Materials for 26 classroom carpets in the amount of $11,154 as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Comments, questions? What building are around the district?
The primary school, the carpets were removed and thrown away during COVID.
Oh, okay.
And so we're without small group, like carpets for instruction at the primary level.
Got it. Okay. Comments, questions, anyone? Laura? Yep.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Six point two, subdivision fee. The board will take action to pay subdivision fees of $1,700 to Danville Borough relative to real estate designated as tax parcel number E-6-36-53.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments about this? Specifically, what is this? Where is this?
So this is relative to the land across from the primary
Okay.
school and the final step before purchase.
Important. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, Laura?
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 7.1, the DAC Soccer Park rental. The board will take action to approve the payment of $4,400 to the Danville Area Community Center for the rental of 2 soccer fields for the 2023 fall soccer season at the soccer park located on East Market Street, Danville, as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Questions or comments? Are we already using this?
Yes, this is
Yes.
part of the budget for fall soccer
Okay.
as well. So
All right, so this is just,
like
kinda-
formality that didn't
Pretty
get
much a
done.
routine.
we just
year
didn't,
after year.
okay. All right, good enough. Okay, and we have full use of this for whatever we'd like to use it for during that time. We've rented it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Ready?
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 8.1, excuse me, academic affairs consent items. Board will take action to approve academic affairs items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, 8.8, and 8.9. Is there anything you would like removed from that as a group? You can take a few minutes and look and see if there's anything you would like us to discuss separately.
Just like to note there are a few first readings of curriculum overview documents, and there are some additional new second reading documents, which would be the Liberty Valley Math Curriculum, the middle school ELA curriculum, and the middle school math curriculum documents would be second readings. The others would still come back for a second reading next month.
Anything you'd like removed? Anyone? Okay, we need a motion in a second, right?
Wait,
Mo-
real,
yeah,
real,
sorry, go
just
ahead.
if I
Mhm.
can, just a moment of clarity here. So with regard to items like this particular one, as far as a board member, so our roles and responsibilities and what we need to do as from the governance standpoint, like this is like the overview is I guess technically how far we have pure accountability into that realm, right? Like, so like we're not expected to have any further view than just a very high level. Is that like a fair way to
I think that's fair.
assess this?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like, we don't get into the formalities of scheduling and working in any of those details. This is more just to recognize, and if I'm not meaning to put words in your mouth, 'cause this has come up before, and I've had discussions with some folks, and I'm just like, nah, that's not what we do
Right.
at this level. Like,
Yeah.
we have something else we want to address in a particular fashion with the
Right.
right administrative folks. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be clear, like,
I think that's a
think it's important to
accurate
recognize that.
characterization of it. Earlier, I asked the question, I think I asked two pieces of the same question together, and that was, are essentially we aligned to the standards, and we have the materials that are aligned to the standards, and is the board approving everything you need to get the kids to where they need to be able to read at grade level, perform mathematical operations at grade level? That's our kind of high-level piece, and when you verify that we are there, then there's another expectation that comes back, and that we need to see the things we
Yes.
saw
Yeah.
move up.
So
I think, yes, that's our responsibility.
yeah, these documents basically address that we are aligning what we are teaching in the classroom to state standards.
And we're mandated to do that.
Correct.
We don't have any discretion in that. I've had that discussion with some people over the last few weeks about what's taught in the classroom, and I don't think this is a standardized test debate. This is, we want our kids to read at grade level, and we want to provide the materials, and we want to provide approve the proper overview and curriculum that allows the kids to do that, and then you kind of take it and run with it and make sure that happens. So is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
It fits.
Okay.
I just think is sometimes there's like a view that we have a higher level of obligation, that we're board members, and therefore if we have an area of expertise, therefore we can like insert ourselves deeper into some of that. And I don't know that is the way.
Yeah.
I liken it more to like me telling a coach how they have to run practice. No, do you have the higher level stuff? You got the tools to do your job. That's what we pay you to do. We
Yeah.
make sure that you've got that other higher level stuff.
And I would also say, and this may just be my opinion, I'm not sure, but I think there's something to it, that we see results and things that are concerning to us, we have an obligation to ask questions of how we got there. I don't think that the autonomy that we provide when we approve something is just a carte blanche, go where you want with this. I think we have a responsibility and obligation to ask for periodic reports, which I think you're giving, and to know what kind of progress we're making, and to kind of put the brakes on if things aren't going in the right direction. I think that's part of our oversight role as well.
I was just thinking.
My feeling.
Like the engagement part, like how far do
Yeah.
we inject ourselves, individuals into those details.
Yeah.
Being accountable for that
Mhm.
oversight.
Yeah, no, I think that's well
Okay.
stated. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Any other comments? We still don't have a motion, do we?
Motion.
Dr.
Second.
Green, second. Mrs. Cooper. Questions, comments? Okay, Laura, you're up.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green? Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Dr. Green didn't get to
Oh, I'm
respond.
sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and vote yes.
I'm like,
You were flying left.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes.
Should've said yes.
Did I get
One for you,
Mr.
one for me.
Vognitz?
That's
Yeah,
fine.
got me.
I got you, okay.
All right. How far do we go there? 8.9, right?
8.10.
So we're on
8.10.
8.10. Title I Request for Services. The board will take action to approve the Title I Request for Services for the 2023-24 school year for the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit to provide services for Greenwood Friends and Columbia County Christian School with a total amount of $10,413 as presented. Motion to approve. Mr. Clauser, second. Vognitz.
You want an explanation on this?
Probably,
Okay.
yeah.
So every year, there's Division of Federal Programs allocates money in Titles 1, 2, 3, and 4 to public schools. If you have students who are in your encatchment area who attend certain private schools who fall under allotments, basically, there's a state formula. We owe, this money is not coming out of our general fund. It is coming out of the Division of Federal Programs grant. And we literally owe them to a dollar that formulaic number, whatever that number comes up to. So it's a per pupil, and we do the math and we figure that out, and once it gets approved. So this is basically in and out money that we actually have to send to non-public schools. And quite frankly, the reason why we contract with the CSIU to provide those services is because otherwise we would have to, it would probably end up costing us actual money through resources if we were sending one of our teachers to one of those buildings to provide those services. It is far more expedient to send that money directly to the IU. The IU can pool that money and then basically essentially disseminate those services. So that's what this contract represents. It's actually not a cost to the district other than that in and out money, which is we're not entitled to regardless.
You have about, what, 3 students going to Greenwood then?
I can look back here.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the number.
7 on Greenwood?
That we
Danville.
transport to Greenwood?
Oh, it's 3. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 10.1 is your September 2023 finance reports. 10.2, September 2023 cash receipts. Neither require board action. And 10.3 will require board action to bills for payment, September 7th through October 4th, 2023. Board will take action to approve the bills for payment for September 7th, 2023 through October 4th, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Okay, Laura?
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Abstain.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes, and just real quickly, I've asked Dr. Need if next month we could create business manager's report in this section. So these would be things, that if there are things that you'd like to point out, you could do that, Mike, okay. 10.4 sound system, the board will take action upon the recommendation of the business manager to approve KNS sound for the base bid and option for the high sound system in middle school at a total cost of $27,981 as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Questions or comments? This is something that came to us earlier, I believe, right?
Yes, and then we needed to send it out for bid. We ended up with the same company.
That's
but
what we
we're
figured.
seeing it again.
Okay,
Will it be ready in time for the musical? I mean, the play?
It will, yes.
great, okay. Okay,
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
yes, 10.5, wheelchair van. The board will take action to approve the purchase of a 2023 Ford Transit T350 wheelchair van from Rohrer School and Commercial Bus Sales at a purchase price of $70,695 as presented. And you can see some of the details about the van that we're purchasing. It obviously is specific to needs that we have.
Yes, and the funding for this does come out of Access because it is used for special needs students.
Yeah, that's, I would like the rest of the board members to hear the financials on it.
We have a motion and a second on
Oh,
this.
Oh, yeah, we
Let's
did.
get the motion and
Motion.
a second, and then we'll
Second.
get the, got both?
Yep.
Motion second, okay, go ahead.
Access funds will pay for this. It's used for special needs. Obviously, we're going to use 90% access funds and 10% general funds. This vehicle can be used for not just for wheelchairs. It can be used for general purposes. It's a 9-passenger van. If it's not being used for wheelchair kids, we can use it for other activities when needed. Vans are hard to come by today with what's going on between strikes and everything. We were fortunate enough to, this was already being built, so it's about a 6 to 8 week lead time till it would arrive on campus. And we'd be purchasing through government purchase concession program. Municipalities, governments have this opportunity to purchase vehicles this way.
Anybody else? Questions or comments? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Richard. Laura, go ahead.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 10.6, sale and disposal of used district equipment. The board will take action upon the recommendation of the business manager to accept the bid results for the used district equipment and to authorize administration to dispose of the remaining items that had no interest.
So moved.
A move, second?
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments on this? Disposal of unused equipment, and we're doing that in accordance with school code. Correct? Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Klauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. Personnel consent items, we're taking action to approve personnel items 11.2 to 11.8. If you would like to have anything removed, let us know before we move forward. See you look up, I'll know you're ready. Okay. Everybody not ready? Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments on anything? All right, Laura, go ahead.
Dr. Green?
Yep.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Klauser? Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. On to 11.9, winter coaches. The board will take action to approve the winter coaches for the 2023-2024 school year. We have Stephanie Coker, assistant middle school girls basketball, step 6, $2,831 and 25 cents. Tom Blasick, high school girls basketball as a volunteer. Alexandra Yurkis, head girls wrestling, step 1, $37.50. And Nick Baker, head boys wrestling, step 3, $53.10. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments on these four coaches? Okay, Laura?
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Klauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 11.10, adjust stipend. The board will take action to adjust the stipend for Matt Diltz, high school girls basketball coach, to $5,748.96, step 4, to accurately reflect previous coaching experience in the district. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? This was explained to us earlier.
Yeah, I just
Right.
want to reiterate that last month we brought this up that when Coach Diltz was first approved, we approved him at step 1, not taking into account the number of years he had in the district as an assistant coach in this. So we wanted to rectify that situation.
Okay.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Klauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 11.11, new hire. Board will take action to approve the employment of Shandy Wicker. Shandy Wicker. Is that right?
Shandy.
Okay. As a paraprofessional at Liberty Valley at the contracted hourly rate of $13.70 effective August 21st, 2023.
A motion.
Motion, second.
Second.
Questions or comments? No questions or comments? Okay.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Klauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 11.12, new hire, Head Start. The board will take action to approve the employment of Kennedy Burkhart as a classroom aide at Head Start Pre-K at the hourly starting rate of $12.20 with a start date pending the receipt of all clearances and paperwork. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments? Okay.
Mr. Klauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 12.1, policy and insurance consent items. We have 12.2 all the way to 12.15. If there are any that you would like to pull out for further discussion, please let me know. We'll do that. Anything, anyone? Okay, can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments? Dr. Faulkner, you had expressed some interest in taking a look at one of the policies. It was 12.14. You had a chance to do that, I believe.
I did, and Dr. Need was very collaborative, and I think it's, been a long time coming in that, changing that policy, but basically we were able to modernize it based on the current evidence and what we do in schools and clinically to make sure that when kids are in crisis, we're preventing it, but if it occurs, that we're also doing the best
Okay,
that the guidance gives us to
appreciate
meet
it.
their needs. So,
Yeah, no, thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. We're at 12.16, correct? All right. CSIU Regional Guest Teacher / Education Major Training Consortium Agreement 2023-24. Board will take action to approve the agreement between the CSIU Regional Guest Teacher / Education Major Training Consortium and Danville Area School District for the 23-24 school year, with the total cost for each consortium member not to exceed $500 as presented. We get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Second, Ms. Cooper. Can we get an explanation of what this is?
Sure. So the CSIU offers training for substitute teachers and also education majors with a particular number of credits to become substitute teachers. And they help provide that service regionally to the districts here in the CSIU. We certainly have a great need for additional substitute teachers, so this is helpful to the district.
Okay. Ready?
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 13.1, bus driver list. The board will take action upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the bus driver list for the 23-24 school year as presented, pending the receipt of all required clearances and documentation. Motion to approve. Clauser. Second.
Second.
Dr. Green. Questions or comments on the bus driver list? Okay, Laura.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Abstain.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 13.2, transportation agreement. The board will take action to approve a parent transportation agreement to transport a student to New Story, Berwick for the 2023-2024 school year.
Motion.
Motion two. Yeah.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
We'll get it out.
Is
Yeah.
that Clauser?
Questions or comments on the student
Okay.
transported by the parent? Okay, we're good.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichard?
Yes.
Mr. Vognitz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. Board concerns and items for the next meeting agenda. Anything that you would like to bring up as a board that we need to address in November? We're good? Okay. Public comment, any item. Ms. Bartholomew. I don't remember how many. I know where you. Yeah.
If you're looking at the field from the parking lot, the school district uses the facilities furthest to the right because we use an 11v11 field. So that property gets rented by AYSO, CSSC, and the school district. And it essentially goes from left to right, if you will, with AYSO to there's one CSSC field way to the left, then AYSO, a group of CSSC fields, and then the school district ones. Certainly, I would say having coached for CSSC and having kids who play in the Danville program, all of those organizations work very kindly and nicely with one another in usage of the fields. So they are rented in the spring. I'd have to get back to you on the if this is covering that full cost or not, but I could have that at the next athletics meeting for you. But we do use those facilities, and the middle school soccer practices there and also has their games there. So it is utilized in the spring as well. In terms of additional fee, I don't know that offhand. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Yes.
I just was wondering then about.
So in the fall, that's an additional practice facility that our varsity teams, our high school teams can use. The boys tend to use it quite frequently. In the spring, I would say it's more heavily utilized because that's also where the games are for middle school, because the stadium's being used for other things. But I could, I'll check on the fee structure for you. Yep.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Anything else from the board for discussion, question? Dr. Need, Mr. Moser, good? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Who's second?
Where's my sticker?
Hauser.